Sky Sports News and the Times newspaper have reported that Amanda Staveley is looking to purchase Vanessa Gold's 25.1% shareholding in West Ham United. But wait, I thought that there was going to be a purchase by Daniel Křetínský of 15.1%, as was announced around about mid-June in the immediate aftermath of David Sullivan's resignation from the board of directors at West Ham United. And you'd be correct. I remember that story coming out distinctly as well. Yet here we are some 6 weeks or so later, and it would appear that for whatever reason, that statement, which alluded to that purchase, the transfer of shares from the Gold family to Daniel Křetínský himself to boost up his shareholding, for whatever reason, that appears to have hit the buffers. Whether the problem is the Vanessa Gold side or whether it's Daniel Křetínský that maybe's rethought his options remains to be seen. At the time I'm recording this at just about 7:45 on Thursday the 30th, to be honest, this is still a very fluid story. In fact, there's a news article that actually says that Amanda Staveley herself has said that this is a very fluid situation that's being dealt with. But I wonder whether this is possibly part of the reason for the non-movement of players into West Ham United. It would possibly make a bit of sense that behind the scenes there's an awful lot of a power struggle, a bit of a vacuum there, and people don't quite know who's actually going to be in charge in the long term. But anyway, get your comments in the section below about your thoughts about this news that's breaking. And if you could also just drop a like on the stream and give us a hype if you have one available, because that is what will ultimately push this content out to places it otherwise might not reach. Why not consider sharing this onto your social media platforms to boost that exposure just that little bit more? And if you're not already subscribed to the West Ham Massive, if you get out your mobile device and scan the QR code that is in the top left-hand corner, that will take you to the YouTube subscription page. Subscribing is free, data safe, and it only takes a couple of seconds of your time and helps to grow the channel into something bigger than it is as you currently find it. Come and join us on the journey, and we appreciate your support. So, as I understand it, Amanda Staveley, a little while ago, approached Tottenham Hotspur. She was the front of a group of investors who I believe are from the United States in the main. They had, as I understand it, an £800 million fighting fund, and they were looking to take over the North London club. However, 𝐒𝐿𝐼 and the Lewis family had other ideas. It appears that, as far as I understand, £2 billion was the asking price, which Amanda Staveley and her American investors said thanks, but no thanks. And they've been, it would appear, on the market for a club ever since. Now, there was an interview that Amanda Staveley did some weeks ago where West Ham's name came up in dispatches, and she was very, very coy about the possibility of investing in West Ham United. But was there possibly things that were going on behind the scenes? Well, we know for a fact that she'd had a little bit of a look around London Stadium with her husband, Mehrdad Guddusi. Now, obviously, she's got a little bit of a backstory as well. She obviously was involved in the Saudi takeover that led to the takeover at Newcastle United, but she was also involved in another takeover before that, when the Manchester City hierarchy that are currently in harness and have led them to an awful lot of success, she was part of that particular transaction as well. So she's got a bit of history, a bit of a track record of getting these sort of deals over the line. So Amanda Staveley's got this consortium with 800 million quid sitting in their back pocket. They're wondering what to do. And then all of this turbulence starts to unleash itself at London Stadium. The panorama expose, David Sullivan's name is mud. He's relinquished of his, or he relieves himself, if you will, not like that, but he steps down as chairman of the board and on the board of directors as a whole. However, he retains 38.8% of the shares in West Ham United. Now, my understanding, like I say, is that Daniel is decided that he's not going to purchase the 15.1% because, quite frankly, if he did want to purchase them, I would have suspected that by now it would have been done, and Amanda Staveley wouldn't be having these talks with Vanessa Gold because Daniel Křetínský's got first refusal. So it must be, I suspect, that that deal can't be reached, or Daniel simply doesn't want to pursue it. Which one is true, I don't know. I'm not an ITK, and I'm just getting these stories on the fly coming out of the various different media outlets. So 800 million quid, they're sitting there. They've seen the turbulence at West Ham United. They've probably seen an opportunity. But also, and this is the interesting thing, there's apparently a view that once they got the 25.1% shareholding, which is possibly going to come from Vanessa Gold if the deal can be agreed. And from what my information is by looking online, the information suggests that this is very, very close to happening. So watch this space. However, it would appear that there is also talk that their longer-term ambition is to gain a majority shareholding at the club by purchasing David Sullivan's 38.8% shareholding. Now, remember, a week or two ago, David Sullivan, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically turned around and said, if you want my shares, you're going to have to pay Premier League money, despite the fact it's a championship club. Thank you very much. Like I say, I'm paraphrasing, he didn't use those exact words, but that was basically the underlying tone of his words. That's how I read them anyway. Now, they want to get long-term control of West Ham United, and also another little parallel subplot to all of this is apparently there's already been talk behind the scenes for purchasing the London Stadium to see how feasible it is. Apparently, Amanda Staveley has been in contact with the Mayor's office about getting that deal done, or the potential of getting that deal done at the very least. Because when you stop and think about it, the stadium is an athletic stadium. It's a stadium that West Ham fans absolutely despise, quite frankly. It's losing money hand over fist. So it doesn't work for the club. It doesn't work for the fans. It doesn't work for the Mayor's office. It doesn't work for the London taxpayer in its current format. Something has to change. Now, with an £800 million fighting fund, is there a possibility that they could get a deal done, and maybe, just maybe, they could reconfigure the stadium, knock down stands, do whatever, and maybe free up some of the footprint, the land that stadium is built on, because the footprint on which it is absolutely colossal. You could build a purpose-built football stadium on that footprint and have plenty more space for retail and commercial properties and all of that to free up some more capital, if you will. So I think there's a possibility that this could happen. And look, I'm mindful of the fact that there's lots of things that could happen and then it doesn't come to fruition. A bit like West Ham buying players, for instance, in a transfer window. I mean, that'd be quite nice. But is this possibly the reason why West Ham's transfer business, as far as incoming is concerned, has hit the buffers? We brought in 𝐒𝐿_Coppin. Nothing's happened. We've apparently brought in some other bloke who used to work for Southampton. What was his name? I've forgotten his name now. But you know the guy I'm talking about. And he's apparently working alongside Coppin or with Coppin to try and get players in. I remember a saying that I was told many years ago, if I'm having to do the job that you're being paid to do, then what's the point of you being here? And that's kind of what I think in this guys. What is 𝐒𝐿_Coppin doing to earn his crust? It doesn't make sense to me. But this is really interesting because there's lots of different subplots here, lots of different storylines that are all intermingling. But the bottom line is that Amanda Staveley could very well become a very, very powerful voice at West Ham United and has the potential to gain even more volume as far as that's concerned. Now, is this a good thing? I mean, do you think that, in your opinion, that would be a good move? Now, I also should point something else out. Now, when I mentioned this to my son earlier about Amanda Staveley, his first reaction to me was, could this mean that we get Eddie Howe? And I thought, no. But then you stop and think about it and you go, well, wait a minute, maybe not right now, because you'd probably think that Nuno's going to get a little bit of a crack at it in the Championship. But just suppose, for the sake of discussion, the first 6 games or so of the Championship season don't go according to plan. Nuno's going to be under some big pressure. Now, if at that time Amanda Staveley has got this deal done of 25.1% of the shareholding at West Ham United, although she wouldn't have the controlling say, Daniel Křetínský would still outgun her, as would David Sullivan. She's obviously going to have an awful lot of sway in the boardroom, and the 38.8% of David Sullivan is kind of irrelevant anyway because he's not on the board. So it would basically be between Staveley and Křetínský in the boardroom. If obviously she goes on to purchase some of David Sullivan's shares, then it might be that actually she ends up outgunning him. So who's to say that maybe Eddie Howe couldn't be tempted? One other thing you've also got to factor in as well, he's been up in the northeast for 5 years. He's actually from the south coast. I think he's from Winchester. He's certainly from that sort of part of the world. So is it possible that Eddie Howe might come to West Ham. At the moment, I'm going to put my cards on the table and say, at the moment, I think that notion is quite far-fetched. However, if things progress in a certain direction of travel, do I think that it's an impossibility? No, not really, because I think in football, there's really nothing that's impossible because it will be money that will dictate it. And with an £800 million fighting fund, they would certainly have it, I think it's fair to say. But what do you think? Like I say, there's a lot of subplots, there's a lot of if, buts, and maybes about this, but it would appear that the deal is close to get Amanda Staveley a 25.1% shareholding. That would mean that the last active tie with the GSB era is now cut. I mean, but not that Vanessa Gold was obviously her father David that was part of the GSB reign, but it's still a tenuous link. Obviously, if she sells up the whole lot, then she's gone. That leaves David Sullivan as the sole survivor. But even he is, although a 38.8% shareholder in West Ham United, he doesn't have a voice in the boardroom. So he's a powerful man in terms of his shareholding, but in terms of his actual influence, maybe not so much. But anyway, what do you think? Get your comments in the section below. There's an awful lot to unpack here, and it's moving very quickly. It's a fluid situation. Now, the truth be told, nothing might come of this, as I say. It may be that this is just talk, and in the end, they go their separate ways, and ultimately nothing's changed. But it's exciting. It's something different to talk about from another player that we've been linked with, and then ultimately radio silence after that, which probably would have been the video that you would have got if this news hadn't have broken today. But instead, this news has broken today. I've got to jump straight on it. And I'm really curious to know what you guys think about all of these little subplots that I brought to you. There's quite a lot to unpack there. So get stuck into the comment section below if you would. And if you could also drop a like on the stream, give us a hype if you've got one available. Share this onto your social media platforms. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, take out your mobile device and scan that QR code that's in the top left-hand corner. That takes you to our YouTube subscription page. Subscribing to the channel is free, data safe, and it only takes a couple of seconds of your time, and it helps to grow the channel into something bigger and better than it is as you currently find it. Come and join us on the journey. Thanks for your time, and I'll appreciate that. We'll see you again soon. Come on, you Irons.